The war of vengeance is upon us, and the little short kings need to do something about these dastardly knife ears. Hello there, welcome back to the channel. It's Richie here from Dwarf After Dark, and I am joined by the Chaos Dwarf himself, Tom Carley, and he's even got the Chaos Dwarf hat on today.
Full hat gang, represent.
So the reason that I have Tom on today, the Short Kings need to unite because the War of Vengeance has begun. The Knife Ears have received their new Arcane Journal and they've got some pretty strong answers to a lot of the lists out there. And I felt that we needed to get some lists to play into them, as all of the videos online for the last couple of weeks have been how to play the High Elves and also what lists to run with the High Elves. And I myself have done a couple of videos about this, unfortunately talking about those Knife Ears, but today we get to talk about dwarves. But we're going to be talking about the normal dwarves and also the Chaos Dwarves as well. And we're going to talk through 2 lists each. So this will be 4 lists today about how to deal with the new High Elves from the Arcane Journal.
Deal with them we shall. You know, we both deal with them in similar ways. We've got lots of really good infantry, lots of really big guns, but you have some weird pseudo magic and I've got real magic, you know. Like, it's good, you know. But High Elves, they're scary. And, you know, I think the first thing we're going to talk about is the thing we've been talking about for a long time, which is dragon, you know.
Yeah, the first thing that comes to the mind when you're thinking about the High Elves is either the dragon or the multiple dragon. Obviously, some people are going to use the creation lists where they're going to bring massive Death Stars. So that's also another thing we're going to have to think about. And then you've also got the tricksiness of the Sea Guard being able to reform when you charge them, shoot and have drilled. So that's going to be another interesting thing to think about. And we kind of thought about those things into our lists. There's also the units that are going to be able to stack multiple -1 to hit, and the fact we're going to have to play into toughness 4 elves now, which just blows my mind, actually.
See, at least it's not toughness 5. You know, like in one of my lists, I've really banked on the fact that only 1 unit can be toughness 4. And I'm going, oh, you're toughness 3? Sad. You know?
Yeah, just trying to capitalize on the fact that they do have a weaker toughness. So like in the builds that I'll be talking about, especially the one that's got all the Longbeards, hopefully if I can get a follow-up move or a charge over 3 inches, then I'm going to be strength 7 or even strength 5 just with hand weapons. That means that I'm still wounding that unit that's toughness 4 on 3s. And that's something that I feel that the dwarves really need to capitalize on, the fact that we are stronger than them. Obviously, the dragons are toughness 6, but we can get up to toughness 7 with our great weapons. So that is something that's a massive consideration for us.
Yeah, and we're doing all the same dance, but, you know, a bit greener in some ways. That's all, you know, a bit orkier. That's all.
Yeah.
You know?
Definitely. So with the release of the new High Elves, how do you think that the Chaos Dwarves play into them?
So the Lothan list, I think we've got a lot of game into. You know, you're on about slapping down loads of big units of toughness 3 things and then a dragon type thing that's not got a bunch of saves. Yeah, man, I'll fight that all day. The Crace list has me worried because that is, you know, lots of magic with scary dragon with really good heavy infantry, and it's like, that's my thing. Stop doing my thing. You know? But yeah, they're 2 very strong lists, but there's weaknesses to both.
Yeah, for sure. I think in some of the armies, I think a dragon is actually going to be a weakness just because the amount of points that are in that one model. So if you can deal with that, then you're going to be on a better footing, right? But I do think they're going to have a lot of play into the meta soon. Like, I think they're going to do really well in home games for everybody that's playing at home or in your local gaming shops. I think that the High Elves are going to come in strong. I also think for us in competitive play, they are going to be a new force to be reckoned with. So it's going to be interesting playing into them. I've had some games into them. I think I've played 3 games into the new High Elf list so far, and I can account that they are pretty strong. They have been pretty close games, which is a little bit different to what the High Elves were before. Outside of a couple of really top players, they were relatively not a bad game for the dwarves, whereas now the War of Vengeance has begun and they are a lot more equal footing now, and it's there's going to be some good fights ahead for sure.
It's not even the 2 armies of infamy. There's some good magic items in there that just turn Grand Army up that little bit extra. You know, I've only played against it once, against Ed, and he took me to dinner. He absolutely ruined me with vacuum dust. So, yeah, there's a lot of secret little tech in there. You think, oh, how bad can a hammer hand be? Not that bad, until it's everywhere. You know?
Yeah, so I've played against the exact list. So one of my friends has copied Ed's list, and we played into that. And yeah, it's a very, very interesting one. I played into that using one of the lists that I'm going to be talking about in a minute, which is the X-Force list. I had 2 really, really fun games into that. And yeah, it's definitely a force to be reckoned with. So let's jump straight into the lists. So the first list that we're going to be talking about today is going to be relatively familiar for most people that watch the channel. It's just going to have a couple of little tweaks in there. So this is a all-comers list for sure. Like if you take this to an event, or if you build this up and then you take that down to your like local club, or if you get any like little leagues, then this is a list that will do you well into most armies. But I've also done some tweaks that make it slightly better into multiple dragons, or to try and murder that dragon, or if there's a dragon coming in with knights, because that is a tactic that a lot of the high elves will use, where they send a dragon in and also a unit of knights to be able to soak up that challenge, which is a real issue. And they're also going to be sending in the sky cutters as well, so it's all a kind of a consideration for how to deal with multiple charges into your big units. So firstly, we're starting off, this is a Royal Clans list. So this is basically the Dowie After Dark clans list, but there's been some changes. So the king has got full plate armor, shield bearers, Master Rune of Gromril, Rune of Preservation, Master Rune of Smiting, and Rune of the Furnace. Everybody knows the Master Rune of Smiting is the D6 damage, which is absolutely amazing into dragons, amazing into the Skycutter chariots, because you can bang them out really quickly. You've just got to make sure with this guy that he's sat in the right place in the unit to be able to do the most damage, unless he's putting out those challenges. The Master Rune of Gromril is a 2-up save, and then because of the Gromril rule gets reroll 1s. Then the Rune of the Furnace is a save against flaming attacks, just in case they do get any flaming attacks in there.
Which you do have to be aware of. You know, okay, the level 4 has been binned out of the Lothern list, but they still have that scary level 4 battle magic. And the Stormweaver can still throw some good stuff in them.
For sure. And talking about being able to stop magic, we've got the Runesmith in there, which is going to turn one of the units MR2, which is Magic Resist 2, which means the opponent's going to have to roll 2 higher to be able to cast spells onto that unit. With full plate armor and shield, this is taking the save up to a 3-up save, because of the full plate armor gives a 4-up, and then the shield gives an extra pip of save, which is really, really good if it's getting attacked in combat. But bear in mind, you do have to choose that at the beginning of the combat. So if you think the Runesmith is going to get targeted out, you need to declare that it's using its shield. This model is also the battle standard bearer in this army, with the Master Rune of Grungni, the Rune of Battle, and the Rune of Courage. The reason that I've taken these is the Rune of Grungni gives a 5-up ward to the unit and a 6-up ward against magic missiles and shooting for other units within 6 inches of that model, which is really, really good. Rune of Courage means that you automatically pass fear and terror checks as well, which is really handy, so you won't be running away. The Rune of Battle is there to be able to get to that fabled CR7, which means that you can, if you need to, just throw your unit champion into a dragon challenge and it will be fine and you'll still win the combat because of the musician. Then the most important thing that this Runesmith does is the 3 runes of spell breaking to stop all of those debuffs and those magical spells that the elves can put out. This is a really, really strong tactic, because you get inside of that range for dispelling, and then suddenly you can stop all of their spells and you're on a really good footing.
I like it. I'm just salty, really salty right now, because yeah, my thing's got full plate armor, and yeah, I can get CR out of the ears, and yeah, I get magic resistance too, just for existing, and I'm like, screw you. I get demonology.
Yeah, no, these are really good. I absolutely, well, obviously I love dwarves, but this is a list that's got...
PSP, because I've got one in my list. I'm just very interested to see. Okay, it's a lot more. It's a lot more. That's fine.
yeah. Like it's a lot more. It's basically the same points as a unit, but what it brings to the table wins you games, which is really good.
I just hope mine wasn't the same price for doing about 2/3 as much as yours, that's all.
Yeah, I mean, probably. I mean, the dwarf stuff is quite overcosted, I think, a lot of it. So next up, we've got the Anvil of Doom. I love the Anvil of Doom. You know why. It's casting those runes, getting the conveyance to move again so you can yeet forward, and also the magic missile is absolutely amazing. But the main buff from this is the +1 save, reroll saves, which means that if you're in a challenge against the dragon, being able to get a 4-up rerollable save with your lord is so necessary to be able to win those combats. So I have stuck with the Master Rune of Adamant on this, and the reason for that is I want that to be toughness 10, which means that dragons are not going to charge into it. Strength 4 is not even going to be able to hurt it, so they're going to have to throw something really meaningful into it just to be able to try and push it backwards when it gives ground, because it's just unbreakable. So they're either just going to leave it alone and be forced into the units that I want them to fight into, or just leave it alone so it can just cast its magical spells. I mean, runes. Going in the book.
Rune of Adamant works well here as well, because you've got no cannons to be scared of. You know, there is that pretty scary was it 90-point new weapon, but no one's taking that.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, there's a lot of chatter online that some people think that there might be an FAQ for the Rune of Adamant on the Anvil of Doom. I personally don't think that's coming, and I think it's pretty clear in the rules that it does transfer over to the Anvil, just because it says model rather than bearer. So I don't think, personally, that there's an argument against being toughness 10. I feel that if they do nerf that, then this is a 100-point item that no one's ever going to take ever again. I feel that this was the intended purpose for this rune, in my opinion.
Yeah, if it was 30 points, I'd see the argument, but not at 100. You know? At 100, do what you want, mate. You always roll 3s. Like, it's 100 points, you know?
So next up, we have the true backbone of this list, which is a unit, a massive unit of 34 Longbeards. They have great weapons. They've been upgraded to have drilled. The Elders got the Rune of Passage and the Rune of the Furnace, and they've also on the Standard Bearer got the Rune of Battle, the Master Rune of Hesitation. Now, the reason that I've put Rune of Passage and the Rune of Furnace onto this is because with the Rune of Passage, it means you get move through cover, which is really handy. Doesn't slow them down, so you can try and get into that Creation wood that they're going to... Well, it's not a wood, but the Creation like terrain that they're going to put down, which means it doesn't slow you down. Unfortunately, when you charge into it, you still are going to have to take the smallest dice, so you're going to have to play around that, so you're going to have to yeet quite close to the big Creation unit. The Rune of the Furnace there is just in case you're fighting against anything with magical attacks and that are flaming, and you really, really want to try and get a 3-up ward against that, which can be coming clutch sometimes. The Master Rune of Hesitation is there for obvious reasons, is to stop those damn cavalry charges and those impact hits from all of those chariots, which I think is a really good addition into this list and can definitely stop the opponent from causing as much damage on that first charge. So next up we have the Dwarf Cart, which is obviously needed in this list to be able to get those dwarves up the board a little bit faster, just in case the opponent's going to be sitting back and peppering us with loads of strength 3 arrows. Now, if they are going to camp and they're going to sit in a corner, like the Sea Guard are probably going to sit there, we're going to have to run at them, which means we're going to have to do the yeet, which is moving forward the 24 inches. I haven't put Vanguard onto the main unit, so you are only going to be able to move 24 inches. But that's still good enough to be able to get up there by turn 2, by turn 3, and then take death to those knife ears. So lastly, we have a slightly smaller unit of Irondrakes I'd normally take. So this is 17 with the Iron Warden, who's got the Trollhammer Torpedo and Cinder Blast Bombs. This means if you can get up close, then you can start throwing those Cinder Blast Bombs, or from a distance, you can try and pop those Skycutter Chariots, or those Lion Chariots as well with the D3 damage. Now this is an absolutely amazing unit to be able to try and deal with cavalry units and also chariots. With the Rune of Courage and the Strolaz Rune, it means that they can move up 3 inches pre-game, which means that you're going to be in range if you get first turn to be able to pepper them right at the beginning of the game. Also with the Rune of Courage means that they can get the stand and shoots against those terror causers without fearing running away or anything like that. So this is a really, really solid army to the Grand Army build and also the Creation list. The Sea Guard are going to be quite tricksy for this just because you don't have loads of movement, but you can just run at them and try and get in their face straight away.
So my first list is called Oppression. Because, I mean, you can see it there, there's a goddamn lot of artillery. I heard toughness 3 elves and I just went, I got strength 3 and 6 artillery. I can use it, finally! So the plan on this one is, I have a feeling that Lothian armies are going to be quite campy, as in they're going to stay in a corner with a few things that just shoot out like Skycutters and the odd dragon. I've got 4d6 worth of wounds on my artillery there. Throw your dragon out, mate, feel free. You know, so the Demon Smith Sorcerer level 1 at the top there, he's just there as an engineer. So this is doing a lot of the same job that an engineer would do in any other list. But he can throw out a Storm of Ash if he needs to. Also, there's Curse of Hashut, which is a tasty little magic missile that targets characters. It's a bit harder to cast, but if they fail a toughness test, which elves are want to do, they take a lot of strength 5 hits with no saves. So lovely. We got the General next. He's got Dark Forged Weapon, Lore Familiar, and 2 Mantles of Stone on foot. The General, the level 4 there, he could quite easily, instead of being on Elementalism, he could be on Dark Magic as well. So if you do have that unit that went up to Toughness 4 and paid 80 points for it, you can just go Word of Paper. And now they don't anymore, you know? Or you can just drop them to Toughness 2. So now your artillery's wounding on 3s, you know? It's all good. So I've got a second one in there, doing a very similar job, you know, running around and just going, oh, you've got strength 3 bows. Woo! And you've got strength 5 bolt throwers. Woo! They don't have a ward save, they're not very survivable, but what I do have is a whole bunch of nonsense in the list for them to hide around. So there's 3x10 hobgoblins with bows. They are there to die, and that is it. They're there to slow things down and die. Although with Plague of Rust off the elementalism, kind of funny watching short bows take down white lions. Then you've got 24 Infernal Guard in a nice big brick. Now this is what one of the wizards will sit inside, the one without the flying carpet, and this one will get pinged around with travel mystical pathways, giving a ward save up, and then shooting out at AP2 with Plague of Rust. They've got the Razor Standard on them as well, and with the blunderbusses and the Razor Standard, they can put out, I think it's AP5, 4 or 5 in total. It's pretty high. They've got drilled as well, so I can do a similar yeet tactic to you by just switching one of these wizards out to Demonology and taking Steed of Shadows. So you can really use all 3 laws here. It's seasoned to taste in that regard. They've got 2 Deathshrieker rocket launchers and 2 Dreadquake mortars. The Dreadquakes are upgraded to Hellbound, which is a reroll on one of the artillery dice per game. And more importantly, magical damage. So you can turn your giant block of Loath and Seaguard Ethereal, feel free, here, have a template. And the Deathshrieker rocket launchers have their stone throws at strength 6, strength 3, or they have a second fire where they're a mortar at strength 3 with flaming attacks. And if you take a single wound, you take panic. So, okay, elves are very, very high in terms of leadership, but 11s happen, you know? And if I'm making 2 panic tests every turn, no, not every turn, obviously it's only 1 per turn, but 2 chances of a panic test every turn, then eventually they'll fail. That's the plan. So this is a sit back and camp with the vast majority of the army and just make the sky turn black. That's this army.
Plus, another interesting one as well is the fact that the Dreadquake mortars turn off Swift Stride, which is something that the faster armies do quite rely on. So suddenly those the Skycutter chariots not getting it is really big, because then you could play around and make sure that they can't charge you, because you can move backwards from them and stopping them from being able to get those charges because with the loss of Swift Stride. So I feel that that's a really good tactic. If they are going to camp against you, then you punish them for wanting to camp against you, right?
This is it, and it really is not just the Lothian army that this does really well against. I find this really punishes Empire armies. Because Empire armies, you'll tend to see 2 long-range artillery pieces that you can hide from quite easily, cannons, and you'll see 2 short-range artillery pieces that you can't hide from, can't go near, your Hellblasters. And then there'll be some Pegasus and some Griffins and stuff like that. Turn the Pegasus and the Griffin's fly speed off, hide from the cannons. And yeah. Okay, Miscat, they are only strength 6, but they're D6 wounds, you know, so if you get lucky, and a 4-up's not that lucky, it's just coin flipping, you can delete things really fast, you know. I've seen 2 Dreadquakes take a Chaos Dragon out in 1 round of shooting. It's not guaranteed, but it can happen, you know.
Yeah, that D6 damage is just crazy, right? Like they definitely forgot to change that when they were going back through the dwarf, go back through the Chaos Dwarf book for sure.
Because there's it's 215 points for a stone thrower. There's only strength 6 that has a 1 in 6 chance of not firing. You know, there's a lot of bad things this piece does. So I feel D6 wounds, it balances it out. Would I prefer strength 8? Yes. And D3 wounds? Yes. Like every day, you know. Because the amount of times I roll a 2 and I'm like, oh, how many wounds would I have done? 6. You know, it happens a lot. So this won't do well versus multi-dragon, but it will do really well versus 1 dragon and a load of artillery or
like bringing the big Death Star of close combat warriors, where they're coming towards you and you can just pepper them every single turn, turn the sky black, as you say. So this next list that I'm going to be talking through is a fun little X-Force list that I've just kind of been working on, and it's basically a mixed avoidance list with a Death Star. So it's the Thunder Star list. So basically it's built around a massive unit of Thunderers and then loads of scouting Gyrocopters. Now, this does depend on your tournaments, whether they let you use the 2 Scout Gyrocopters in core and then 3 in special. I've recently been informed that some places in different countries aren't letting you use the ones in special. They're only allowing you to use the 2 in core, so it really does depend. You need to find out beforehand. Here in the UK, we're allowed to use 2 in core and then 3 in special because they use different allotments, but you need to find out from your tier organisers. And also ask your opponent as well. If you are playing this in a friendly game, it's always best that you're kind of on the same page and just kind of ask their permission beforehand, just because some people have got different opinions on it. So it's always best to find out. So in this list, your general is going to be Burlock Damington. We know what he's there for, so he's going to be giving reroll 1s to the big unit of Thunderers and also making it so you always hit on 4s, because you never take that long range minus, so you can just move forward and shoot, and you're kind of always hitting on 4s really. Next up, we have a Thane, which has got full plate armor, shield, the battle standard bearer with the rune of Grungni, Schroeder's rune, and the rune of Courage. On shield bearers, this bit's quite important to be able to get those bigger ablative wounds. The master rune of bursting flame, rapid fire, accuracy, and passage. Now, the reason I've taken this on a handgun is so it's the same range as all of the thunderers, so you can work out your ranges. It just means that you don't have to think about anything too much with a crossbow in there going for extra range. It's all simple, so you don't forget about it mid-game, basically. The bursting flame, accuracy, and the rapid fire, we all know what that does. It's 2 shots, always hit on 3s, and then explode into 2d3 each. So it's a crazy amount of shots. You can get 12 shots out of this guy, and always hitting on 3s is absolutely crazy. And the fact that I've put this as the BSB, the reason for this is this next model is going to be a Thane, which is going to be your challenge hero. Now, this guy's got a great weapon, full plate armor, shield bearers, rune of preservation, master rune of Gromwheel, and the rune of the furnace. The Gromwheel, 2-up save, rerolling 1s, preservation, can't be multi-wounded, shield bearers to get the extra wounds. This model is if a dragon charges into you, you need something that can challenge it out and hopefully survive that round. I mean, this is quite survivable. A dragon's usually only going to be AP2, which means you're going to get a 4-up save, rerolling 1s. So statistically, this model shouldn't die over the course of 3 or 4 combats. So this unit that he's going to be in is also going to be combat res 5. So you can try and tank it and then win on combat res. That's the whole point of this guy being in there. And you also don't really want to take the challenges with the BSB in this list, because it doesn't have an anvil, so you don't get the reroll saves. So you really don't want to put that guy in harm's way. Next up, we've got a nice little tech piece, which is going to be the Runesmith in there, with the 3 runes of spellbreaking, like I talked about before, to stop all of that tricksy high elf magic. The real reason the Runesmith's in this unit is for the Forge Fire rule, which means any roll of a 6 on those handguns makes them AP4. So suddenly, if you're shooting at a large target, you're going to have absolutely load of shots, 6s to wound anyway, and then suddenly those 6s are AP4. So you're going to just be putting most behemoths onto a ward save and a regen save if they've got it. If you can get rid of that first save, suddenly they're a lot easier to take down. Yeah. So next week, so filling up the core, we've got the meat and potatoes of this list, as you say. So it's starting out with the Thunderstar, which is a unit of 38 Thunderers. They're upgraded to have great weapons, shields, expeditionary marksman, a veteran, standard bearer, and a musician. The expeditionary marksman means that they can move and shoot with no penalty. Now, this is really, really important, because the way that this is going to work, this unit doesn't have quick shot. So if the opponent's getting too close, you're going to have to move backwards and shoot. Or you can even get yourself out of charge ranges by doing a full reform and then swinging your unit around and basically getting out of charge ranges, so you can make them charge you with only one fast moving thing, for instance. So if they're coming at you from multiple angles, you can probably actually get out of one of the charge ranges of one of them just by doing a full reform and then still being able to fire everything with no negatives as well, which is absolutely amazing. This, coupled with Burlock, means that this unit is always hitting on 4s basically, unless you're shooting into cover, and also re-rolling 1s. So 38 shots is terrifying if you're shooting into large.
2 lines of 19, is that a brick? Like, how?
Yeah, so I like to kind of run them in a brick normally. So I want to keep a couple of ranks. I mean, most armies that you're going to be playing into have got large targets. So if you're playing into a large target, you also want to try and keep those ranks for as long as possible, because this unit doesn't have massive combat res. And the reason for that is that you can't put a Rune of Battle in the unit. So you need to try and keep those ranks for as long as possible. So if you're playing into large targets, you're going to want to stay, I think, probably about 14 to 15 wide is probably about as wide as I'd want to go. and then you're keeping those ranks for longer.
With any of the other ranged units, so you've got these quarrelers, and do you have rangers in core in the X-Force?
Yeah, so you can take rangers. So you could swap these out for rangers. So obviously there's 38 thunderers in this unit. You could swap this out because the same points for 33 rangers. So it's just kind of, you take your pick of what you want to use in this. I just quite like the thunderers because of the natural AP all of the time. So they're AP 1 all the time. Yeah. And also they get the reroll ones from Burlock. So it really depends what you want. So if you want something that's going to be a little bit more reliable hitting, then the rangers are going to be hitting on 3s, but they're not getting the rerolls. And then it's and if you want something that can potentially do a bit more damage, then go with the thunderers, and also they're hitting on 4s, rerolling 1s. So it really depends. Like if you can roll well, I would say that the thunderers are better. But if you roll worse, then go with rangers instead. Obviously, the rangers are weapon skill 4 compared to the thunderers weapon skill 3, so you really need to take that in consideration. But the next bit of this list will help with what's getting into combat with you. So next up, we have 2 units of scout gyrocopters filling up the core. So these are basically going to be flying around with clatter guns. They've got a 44-inch range, threat range basically, because they can move 20 inches, and then they've got a 24-inch range. So they can just zip around and shoot everything. But you probably want to get within 12 inches so that they are hitting on 4s, because they are ballistic skill 4, but then they get multi-shot, so they are -1, unfortunately. So you don't really want to be hitting on 5s with these. It's probably all right for the first couple of rounds, but then you want to start causing a nuisance and nuking stuff. Finishing off the list, we also have another 3 units of scout gyrocopters and 1 singular gyrocopter with clatter guns. Now, the point for the singular gyrocopter is to just cause a nuisance, and if anything is gonna say, if anything, you're going into a big shooting unit, for instance, you're going to park that singular gyrocopter in front of that unit, so it's going to have to shoot at that and not any of the more important things. It's more of a distraction Khan effects in this list, really. And then the scout gyrocopters are zooming around and hopefully all firing at the same target, because all of these go into 1 unit. They can actually whittle it down really fast. I've played this into Tom quite a few times, and they kill stuff quite quick.
I don't like it anymore.
No. This is 100%. This is a really kind of fun amalgamation list. So the initial X-Force list I was running was 19 gyrocopters with clatter guns. Now, I found this to be a little bit oppressive for some armies. It's not very fun to play into, so I decided to kind of rein that back a little bit. So add a Death Star, which I really enjoy about the dwarves, with all the heroes in, getting all the buffs, the rerolls, the minus and negatives to hit, have the challenge hero in as well, and then have the gyrocopters there as well. So this does have quite a few gyros, so you can be really tricksy, you can like chase down wizards and stuff like that, but also you do have that base of a Death Star. This list is quite good into High Elves, actually, because with all of the clatter guns, you can absolutely rinse all those Toughness 3 units. The Thunderers can absolutely shred Toughness 4. The Fireball thing can absolutely smash Toughness 4 as well. And also you can be an absolute nuisance to all of those really fast moving units with the Scout Gyrocopters, because you can outrange them. So you can outrange them. You can use your fire and flee, like just dipping into their charge ranges. This is a really fun list to use. I would really suggest everybody at home to use this one because it's just a fun list. I don't think it's going to be mega competitive in a tournament setting. Like, I don't think you're going to like win 5 games with it, but I think you'll do really well into High Elves, which is kind of what it was written for, really. And you just kind of have a bit of fun with it. It's a solid 3-2, like we were talking about earlier, but this is definitely a fun one to play at home.
I feel like this list goes really well into my next list as well. So, yeah. Like, just because, for similar reasons, one big scary thing and then a few blocks of nonsense to deal with, you know? Very similar kind of problem, you know?
So your next list is the block.
Yes. Very inspired by your Royal Clans list, might I add, as well. So I loved what Richie was doing with his Royal Clans, and I went, how about that, but we do, you know, the cool version of it with the Chaos Dwarves instead. Now, he does have 2 things I can't get. One of them is the reroll saves. Can't do that. And I can't do the extra movement. But what I can do is I can bring monsters, and I can bring Black Orcs. So, your original version of it with the Longbeards, we've seen it today, your newer version of it. So the first thing that's rolling my list, this is new recruit, so for some reason it doesn't put the general at the top. So the third list down, Sorcerer Prophet. He's my general, level 4, Dark Forged weapon, 2 power scrolls, and Wand of Jet. Now, I've fallen in love with Wand of Jet recently. If your army doesn't have a way to get +1 to cast or +1 dispel out of its regular magic item allotment, look at this. It's 45 points, it's +1/+1, until you roll a double. Doubles aren't actually that common. Take it from me, I'm a Beastman player. My Minotaurs get frenzied on a double on their leadership test. It's happened 3 times this edition. It doesn't happen that often, you know? Okay, a miscast also then is double bad because you've miscast and then you've lost your wand at the same time. But still, it's good. With the Dark Forged weapon, if you roll a 6 on that pre-game, you're now sitting at +2 to cast. It's good. So he's running on Demonology, and he's got those 2 power scrolls when the wand does eventually run out. He's looking for Storm of Ash, and that's the -1 to hit, the 9-inch bubble. And then he's looking for his Demonology buffs and Steed of Shadows. I don't run a Lore Familiar on here because Storm of Ash is too good. I would rather lose my maneuverability in the list and retain Storm of Ash. The reason why I don't care about maneuverability is the next guy up in the list, the Infernal Seneschal. He's got the War Banner, the Great Weapon, and the Charm Shield, and the unit that he sits in, which is there, the Infernal Ironsworn, they've got the Lamassu's Beard. Now, this is very, very similar to the Master Rune of Grungni, but what this does, it's a 5-up ward versus shooting to the unit they're in, magic resistance 2 in a bubble, and 6-up ward versus shooting everywhere else, and a 6-up ward in combat. So it's a little bit worse than yours, but it's only 65 points, so it's quite a lot cheaper. I mean, my BSB is only running 120 points there, and the unit is 279 that's carrying the banner, which is the same cost as just your BSB.
Yeah.
So, you know, you were saying it's the same price as a unit, it's just there, quite literally. I've then got the power pieces of the unit, of the army, sorry. We've got the Black Orc Warboss on Wyvern, with Great Weapon, Enchanted Shield, Trollhide Trousers, and the effigy of Mort. I don't really change this guy's loadout very often because it's so damn good. He hits like a truck, he's got triple saves, and he's -1 to hit in combat. He's weapon skill 7 as well. Now you can get high elves that go up to weapon skill 8 because of their honours, but most are only weapon skill 7. So this really means that they can't be hitting you if they're going to be hitting you on 5s. And elves aren't that good in combat anyway. Their dragons will always be hitting you. We've then got in core 30 Black Orcs, so I can't get Longbeards, and my Chaos Dwarves are crap, so I did this instead. So it's 30 Black Orcs, 15 of them with shields, 12 plus a champion with great weapons. Now this is the fun bit. The boss has got the Collar of Zorga, so now my dude's going to die. I'm accepting that in the challenge. Richie's managed to build a way which his Thane can survive the challenge and walk through it. Mine's dying, but what I can do is I can mitigate it. I've got CR 7 in that unit, the Raggedy Flag, Close Order, Ranks, and all of this stuff. But I ain't winning. So Collar of Zorga makes the mount of any unit at -1 weapon skill. So that's horses drawing chariots, dragons, horses under knights, all of that stuff. So making them drop down in weapon skill really does help a lot. With the -1 to hit off of the Sorcerer Prophet as well, there's a good chance there that they don't even get up to the 6 from the combat res. You know, so I've understood that I'm never going to win, but what I can do is mean that I win on combat res because they can't get to their 6 kills. They can only maybe get to 4 instead. They're definitely going to do 1. Let's try and make it smaller. The next bit is 5 Infernal Guard because you have to take them. The reason I managed to get 5 here and not 10 is because they're running as a detachment to the Infernal Ironsworn below. So they're still in core, but they're getting dropped with the Ironsworn. What these tend to do is just hold a flank of the Black Orcs, set up in marching columns in a line of 5 and just walk up next to the Black Orcs and protect the flank. And then we've got an Iron Demon. Steam Cannonade and Hellhound, it's an organ gun on wheels, they're toughness 7. The cool thing about this army, everything fits inside the bubble of the Lamassu's Beard. Every single unit fits inside that bubble. So you can have Black Orcs at the front, the Infernal Ironsworn behind, the Demon, the Wyvern, and then some guys behind. So you can just run your truck of an army forwards and just go, nah, whatever, cannonballs wreck you. There's no cannonballs in elves, you know. Triple Dragon wrecks you because they can fly behind you. There's only really 1, maybe 2 in high elves. If there's 2, fine. It means that you've not got a big scary brick coming at you. If there's 1, it means that there's probably a scary brick somewhere, and if there is, Black Orcs, you know. So it's a way which I was basically trying to make orcs more competitive without leaning into the traditional double flyer, double demon setup. It does have its weaknesses, like I say, against multiple large targets, but if there's only one or two, it does really well. It does really good work. And those 30 black orcs can do a disgusting amount of damage if you let them charge. With stubborn and veteran on them, they're not running away very easily either. You know?
Yeah, no, for sure. That is good. I really like that list. I think it answers a lot of questions that the high elves are going to be throwing at you, and yeah, it's strong. It's basically a stat check army, isn't it? Can they roll good dice? If they can't, they lose, right?
Yeah, and they need to roll really good dice in all phases, because toughness 6, toughness 7, high armor saves across your whole list, and high magic resistance across your whole list, with a level 5 dispeller sitting there. So there's a lot of things that can work in your favour.
Yeah, I mean, you just got to look at everything that high elves do really well, right? So they cast magic really well. They can get a lot of debuffs now as well with the Stormweaver, which is really good. They can shoot really well. They hit really well. They have the highest initiative in the game, so they're always going to be hitting first. So if you know this going into it, you're like, right, I need to stop the magic. I need to not care about getting hit first. If I can make my stuff tougher or get the reroll saves or just get a better save, then that's something that we need to kind of work into your list, right? Because you know they're going to hit you first, you know they're going to shoot better than you, so you need to plan around that. And that's what we tried to do with these lists, really. It's to think about what the high elves can do, and then build around stuff that goes into that quite well. Now, with the new bow, with the through and through, we do have to be careful when we're using our units. Like, you don't want to go too thick. If we get caught in marching column with that, that's going to probably hurt quite a bit. But luckily, it's not a really high strength, so it will run out quite quickly, which is good.
Strength 5, is it?
Yes, I believe so, yeah.
It's not. The thing is, like, I'm actually more scared of the Eagle Claw bolt thrower than I am of that new bow, because that's still strength 6. It's still a proper bolt thrower. It's going to shred our infantry on 2 still. Their new bow, if they're taking that, it's something else that they're not taking that's pretty scary. I'd actually be, if I saw that bow coming up, I'd be like, okay, that's cool. I know I've got to avoid it, but Mr. Wyvern, off you pop. You know, or your Irondrakes to shoot the crap out of whatever unit they're in, because they're not hiding by themselves. You know, if they are hiding by themselves, they're dead turn 2 to your Irondrakes. You know, because if they're taking those 45 points, they're infinitely less tanky. You know, especially if it's a hero character, it's that and a charm shield. You know, there's not a lot else they can do. So, yeah, there's some certain tricks that we need to be aware of with elves. The big one, we've talked about Lothar, we've talked about Grace, but Grand Army, honestly, I think is the pokiest out of the 3 now. And that's because of the new magic items that have gone in. You need to have a solid line of defense for... There's going to be a hammer hand in every unit. Every unit that matters is going to have a hammer hand. So even the little light cavalry units, you're going to have silver helms running at you, and the champion's just going to twat you with 2d3 strength 4 hits with AP2, and you're like, crap, where did that come from?
Yeah, I have had this as well, actually. It's really good.
You don't expect it. Silver helms, I can take that. And they've told you at the start of the game that they've got that item, and you forget about it because we've never come across it. So it's just those tiny champions accidentally winning challenges by a ridiculous amount and then thundering through units, you know? If I was going into High Elves more, I'd probably take only unit champions where I really want them, because they are the kings of the small challenge now. You know, I still think Chaos is by a long way, and Dwarves as well, do the character challenge better than anyone else. But High Elves do the unit champion challenge better now. I wouldn't throw my BSB against a dude with the hammer hand on bound, because it could just kill him. You know? 6 saves at AP2, I'm getting a little bit worried there.
That could even go bad for a Dwarf King, right? Like, if I roll loads of 2s, he's dead.
This is it. And you're like, oh, that cost me 25 points to do that. So you've got to be very careful and having a decent bit of magic resistance, and also not committing your dispellers. I would say casters, but in your case, your runesmith and your anvil, always making sure one of them is out of combat, because the assailments is where you really need to be aware of things now, you know? We've not even spoken about Doppelganger and the new magic weapons yet, but they can do some truly terrifying things, you know?
Yeah, no, they really can. So with the new sword and then Doppelganger, that's going to be quite scary going forward as well. Another one, obviously, they always could turn a unit ethereal with high magic. That's something that as a dwarf, we want to stop that. Obviously, with the Chaos Dwarves, you're not too bad because you're just going to be throwing loads of magical shooting anyway.
Yeah.
But only the Fireball Thane and any upgraded artillery is going to be able to do damage into those units that are ethereal. So it's best off that you actually get close and try and stop that and then charge them and then do the damage that way. So for you out there who were like, right, why didn't you take any artillery in your list, Rich? So the reason I haven't gone for that is because the High Elves have got so many fast-moving units that they can just come around us and they can pick up points. I'm quite aware of the fact that the artillery would be really good into them, but it's just so liable just to get absolutely smashed by the High Elves because they've got so many, they've got so much access to those chariots, to dragons, to knights that can come around us. It's just almost not worth giving them those points.
Yeah, I feel that if you were going to go into artillery, you almost have to take a unit of rangers for each piece of artillery just to babysit. You know, just to sit around them and wrap that back flank out and just make sure that a unit of it probably costs less than 100 points for silver helms that can just run up and take your entire backline with them. Or Illyrian Reavers, sorry, not silver helms, the even cheaper ones, you know? Because our artillery, both of us have the same problem where we're really good against shooting. As soon as we get into combat, we just fall over, you know?
Yeah, that's the problem. And obviously the crew is toughness 4, so it can withstand some stuff, but those lances, you're just going to die to them, unfortunately. And
it's 5 up. Is yours 5 up saves as well on the artillery?
6 up minor.
So this is what I mean. It takes very little to get through those 3 wounds, and that's point. You know?
Yeah. No, it's a nightmare. But have a look at these lists, have a play with them, play into some High Elves, and let us know what you think. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. Quickly before we go, I would just like to say that we have a channel member Discord going now. And while I'm here as well, I would just like to do a massive shout out to Tom's business. Basically, he is the channel sponsor with UK Resin Print. You can find the link down below, and he's also on Etsy. If you do follow the link down below, then you'll be able to get 15% off, or just tell him that Richie sent you and you'll also get that. He has some amazing 3D prints. I'm going to be doing a video where I go through a model that he sent me really soon, so you'll be able to see the quality of them.
It's big as well. Right, I made this about 6 months ago. This is one of my Iron Lamasu's for my army, and Richie didn't like that he didn't have one, and he's got a Gyrocopter army. Richie's is this big.
Nice.
So
I'm excited, mate.
Yeah, he's going to look.
Yeah,
with it.
Super keen. Obviously, I won't be able to use it in games, but it's just going to be there to put out on tournaments next to all the Gyrocopters.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for coming on, Tom. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you all so much for watching, and thank you very much to the channel members as well. Without you, we wouldn't be able to make these videos. So thank you so much, everyone. Take care.
Ta-ra.
Goodbye. So a super quick moment to talk about the fact that the Dowie After Dark store is now available if you want to get some Dowie After Dark merch and support the channel. Follow the link down below and you can get some Dowie After Dark merchandise. Rock and stone!